There's a lot of bad information floating around right now about what defamation actually is. And this always happens whenever a big story hits the news and everybody starts talking. One of the things I try to do on this platform is not just comment, but educate. Because when misinformation spreads, people start making serious claims they don't fully understand. And defamation is one of the most misunderstood legal concepts out there. So if you've been seeing people throwing around the word defamation, or if someone has even accused you of defaming them, this is your quick primer. Let's start with the basics. Defamation requires a false statement of fact that harms someone's reputation, not opinions, not insults, not personal feelings, not disagreements. A false statement of fact. You'll hear people talk about libel and slander. Historically, libel was written and slander was spoken. But in modern courts, that distinction usually doesn't matter much anymore. Here's where most people get tripped up. Opinions are not defamation, and courts have been extremely protective of that, for a very good reason. For example, I don't like how Jenna runs her business. That's an opinion. But Jenna steals money from her customers. That's a statement of fact. And if it's false, that could get you in trouble. Now, let's talk about the actual legal elements. First, it has to be a false statement of fact, not an opinion. Second, it has to be about a real person, business, or organization. Third, it has to be published to someone else, meaning it has to be communicated beyond just you and the subject. Fourth, there has to be fault, either negligence or, if it's a public figure, what's called actual malice. And finally, there have to be damages, real measurable harm. Every one of those elements has to be met, which is why defamation lawsuits are incredibly hard to win, and that's intentional. Truth, by the way, is an absolute defense. If it's true, it's not defamation. Another major reason these cases fail is because people confuse opinions with facts. If opinions were actionable, we wouldn't have online reviews. We wouldn't have consumer feedback. We wouldn't have public criticism. And that would destroy a huge part of how our marketplace works. Some cases also fail because of something called privilege. Certain statements are protected, like things said in court filings, sworn testimony, or legislative proceedings. And then there's something most people don't know about, anti-SLAPP laws. SLAPP stands for Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation. These laws exist because courts recognized long ago that people sometimes file defamation lawsuits not because they have a real claim, but because they want to silence someone. And that's dangerous. Being threatened with a defamation lawsuit is scary, especially if you don't understand the law. Most people don't have the money or resources to fight it, even if they're right. So anti-SLAPP laws do something powerful. If a court finds that a defamation claim is frivolous and meant to silence criticism, the case can be dismissed early, and the person who filed it can be forced to pay the other side's attorney's fees, sometimes on top of sanctions. That's a big deal. These laws vary by state, so you always want to check your local rules. But the purpose is the same, to prevent the legal system from being used as a weapon for public relations. Courts don't like that. There's an old saying in defamation law: don't sue someone who buys ink by the barrel. Back in the day, that meant newspapers. Today, that probably means social media. Public figures and businesses have an even higher bar to clear. Why? Because they usually have more resources, more access to public, and more ways to respond. And here's one of the most ironic parts of defamation law. If you file a defamation lawsuit, you almost always bring more attention to the thing you wanted buried. By definition, you're amplifying it. And you're also asking a court to declare that someone else's experience, belief, or opinion is invalid. If you've ever taken a communications class, or just lived life, you know that telling people their feelings or opinions aren't valid usually doesn't go very well. So yes, defamation is real. Yes, it exists. Yes, it can be serious. But most of what you see online labeled as defamation is not defamation. And throwing that word around without understanding it can create real legal consequences for the person making the accusation. That's your defamation primer. And given everything going on right now, it's one worth understanding.